Today, I ask, what do the ancient past, war, and mating strategies have in common?
War brides taking trophy wife to a whole new level.
Today. Today, we're going to be talking about war brides, otherwise known as the disposability of men, and we're going to go ahead and talk about some mating strategies in that as well. Fun times ahead.
It's finally time. We get to do this.
It is finally time for war brides.
You were like, no, it's not time yet. Now it's time. Okay.
Sure. So before we get into war brides as a whole, we're going to go ahead and talk about a few things to lay the foundation. One thing that I'll go ahead and bring up is a couple of studies that serve as source material to this, in addition to The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi. His YouTube channel is going to be linked below. And the two primary studies that we'll be using as some of the background information to kind of inform what's going on is one study by Marty Haselton and Elizabeth Pillsworth named Women's Mating Strategies and the Evolution of Long-Term Bonds and Extra Pair Mating. And then by Gangestad and Simpson, we've got Evolution of Human Mating, Trade-Offs, and Strategic Pluralism. So if you want to go ahead and look them up, I'll have them down in the description below, and you can go ahead and be surprised or horrified, depending on what your perspective is. But look it up. It's a good read. It's pretty straightforward stuff. But, man, there's some wild stuff in there. But anyhow, before war brides, we've got martyrdom and social proof, because these are kind of like the important foundational things that lead into the social phenomenon of war brides back in the day. So when the ship is sinking, what do you hear as a common trope?
Women and children.
Women and children first.
To the lifeboats.
To the lifeboats. Why is that?
Because they're saving the future and the ovens. They only need a few guys to fill the ovens.
Okay, so that kind of goes ahead, right?
I'm like, we're being practical here.
That is a practical fact of life. Is hey, an oven needs to be occupied by 9 months, and dudes could occupy multiple ovens at the same time. It's just a fact of life. But the other thing that you've gotten to when you're talking about that is male disposability. So in previous podcasts, we mentioned how only about 40% of men have ever reproduced throughout history, and over 80% of women have. So there's a little bit of an imbalance there. So it turns out there may be some overlap somewhere in that. But I think that based on stuff that happened in olden times, the idea of women and children first evolved as a mechanism for the protection of families. Does that seem to make sense and jive? And in order to protect the psyche from all of the horrors that are associated with that, like men being disposed of and dying in horrible situations, I think that's what brought about this social honor of martyrdom, right? It's a way for us to use a social convention to hide the brutality of the truth. And I think a lot of our social conventions do that in a lot of ways, is people are uncomfortable with the truth being in front of them. And when you put it in their face, they get real upset about it.
Like this.
That's just what it is. Do you think that this idea of women and children first has a grip on today? Or do you think this is really more of a thing of times past?
When ish hits the fan, it really does come out.
Do you think that the way our social messaging comes from media reinforces that idea?
No.
Why do you think that?
Because there's this whole feminized social brainwashing that's like happening, that I can do anything a man does,
Sure.
We're all supposed to be the same. But it's interesting that like what people say and what people do is different. Because there's still like this thing about, oh, look, there's hope. Chivalry isn't dead. But then did they want to turn around and go, I don't need no man? It's like, pick a lane, man.
I think it's funny because the idea of chivalry a lot of times is it's an expectation on men to provide something for nothing.
Yeah, now for nothing.
Now for nothing. Whereas in times past, you are doing these protective behaviors for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now there's just this blanket expectation with no respect for it and no reward for it.
Well, which is what we talked about last week, is like men are expected to be gentlemen when women are acting, I'm sorry, more like whores than ladies.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
That's the thing. It's like they're expected to provide something for nothing.
So what do you think was kind of like the baseline source for why this protector dynamic evolved back in the day?
Sparta.
Sparta? Okay.
Sort of. Pretty much. I mean, they taught little girls to like be okay to defend themselves, but only like at the end of need.
Sure, as a measure of last resort.
Exactly.
So what I think of is just the way, way back machine and saber-toothed tigers.
A hunter-gatherer system.
Yeah,
Got it.
hunter-gatherer societies. Like, I envision, has been, posited several times that, hey, when a dude went and saved a woman from being ripped apart by a saber-toothed tiger,
Yeah, she went home with him.
she went home with
She
him,
went
right?
back to his cave.
She went back to his cave, and they had a good
There
time.
was no hair dragging necessary until after they got to the cave.
Right, but that was like it's a different thing entirely, right? But the bottom line concept is that throughout time, men have risked their lives in order to have reproductive access. And a lot of times, they were violent with one another to secure access.
I mean, you see that in the animal world, too.
Right?
Like, we have a higher plane of reasoning and all of that stuff. And now, as a result of that, we have social convention that keeps us from just completely acting like animals. But there is that instinct there.
Yeah, there's a lot of animalistic instinct still there. And it's just a matter of sometimes our great education doesn't overwrite our natural proclivities or our biology or these evolutionary habits that we've developed over tens of thousands of years.
I mean, look at it. Like, you're out at club somewhere with your woman or whatever, and some dude starts to chat her up and starts to be like, hey, flirting and stuff, and it's pretty, like, right in front of you. I want to kick his butt. You want to punch him in the face.
Well,
Be like, what?
I would say that most men with a spine would do that. I think that some guys would just be like, whatever.
But the actual, like, instinct is definitely at least there. Be like, what? Whether or not they do something about it is completely separate thing.
Sure. And I would say if they don't do something about it, chances are there's going to be some problems.
Check your hormones.
Yeah, get your hormones checked. But the fact that like men would go ahead and use violence to secure mating opportunities is another thing that kind of leads to the idea that men are disposable.
Yeah.
Right. And so back in the day, a lot of times that you'd have one dude mating with like 17 women on average. Right. If you go ahead and look in the Wayback Machine, and even in ancient texts, you can see that polygyny was really like a thing that happened among the wealthier men.
Yeah.
To go ahead and care for many mates and their offspring.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah. And not only there, but also in the Quran and all kinds of other ancient texts, right? It's just a common theme that you see in history, because it turns out that when men are controlling the resources and they have the ability to generate the resources, and the women want to get with the dudes that have the resources, those things get put together.
It's just a natural, again, this is like a natural extension of things. It's like, this is the way things are, cool. And then you say that and you're like, wait a minute. And then,
Wait.
And that's like, but did we lie? It's like, no.
No
we did
lies
not.
told.
Like, just saying this whole thing where, men are disposable, where, men are called to like go defend, the fort, or the city or whatever. If you really want to be overly simplistic about it, this is an evolutionary test for guys.
Yeah, you either make it or you don't reproduce.
If you don't make it, you don't reproduce.
Yeah.
So this is an
Well,
evolutionary calling.
It's interesting, right? Because, in modern times, there's a lot of dudes that aren't reproducing because they're not cutting it, right? And so they're not getting selected for mating opportunities.
Yeah, because they're just, sitting at home playing video games. There's nothing wrong with sitting at home playing video games, but if you expect to meet somebody who's going to do all the cool things, like, and be that end game family reunion portrait when you're 100 years old, then
It takes a little bit more effort.
That's not what it's going to be about. But I think it's really cool, though, that, some people get lucky and they get to, meet people on World of Warcraft or something.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting when that happens.
Yeah.
And it's like good for them.
Adorable, yeah.
It's like you get to go ahead and meet each other through a mutual hobby, and then you get to be happy.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. If you'd like to see more from this podcast, you can go ahead and click here, where the podcast episode is linked in its entirety. If you're new here, you might want to consider subscribing right here. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.